Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos HaTruma. We are continuing the Mishnah Yomi in the 7th chapter of Eiruvin at Mishnah Vav. Ketzad Mishtapmin b'Mavui. How do we join together in a alleyway? Now again, this means how do the residents of the various courtyards opening into this alleyway join their property rights to allow carrying items on the Sabbath in this alleyway. Now, it seems like this belongs in the first parak. In the first chapter, we talked about the physical requirements. Remember the width and the height of the entrance of the alleyway and various tikkunim we could put on the entrance to separate the chutzner from the alley and the alley from the public street to make sure that people who are carrying in the Mavui in the alley do not come to carry in the street. Remember, there were side posts and top posts, Korah and Lechi. So now we're actually talking about the actual joining together to put jointly owned food in a location in one of the chatzerim that's going to be shared by the residents of the Mavui to allow them to join together their property rights so they can all carry there, to make it as if it's one joint, privately owned rishus instead of a publicly owned rishus with many different property rights. So, Ketzad Mishad and Mavi, how do we make this shituf? Lamaisa, what do we do? Maniach et hachavit, we put down the barrel, ve'omer, and we say. So we put the barrel into one of the courtyards that opens into the Mavui, and he actually announces, Hareze the kol b'nei hamavui. This now belongs to all the residents in the entire alleyway. So all of the courtyards and houses opening up to this alleyway, everyone who's joined in to this shituf. Mizalke lehen, and you can give it over all yedei b'no vito gedolim. If you have a son or a daughter who's 13 or 12 years old, they are halachically adults. All yedei avdu shato ivrim. If you have a Jewish servant or maidservant, they are considered halachically independent, and you can transfer items to them with a kinyan. All yedei ishto. It's a chiddush, even though ishto kegufo, even though man and wife are like one joint body and joint entity in some respects, Lamaisa, she's still a separate person, and you could give your wife something that she should acquire it on behalf of someone else. So in this case, the man is giving over the barrel of wine or oil or whatever it is to one of these people on behalf of all of the residents, and since they can acquire it for themselves, they can acquire it too for everyone else. Now the Bartanura points out that if this barrel of wine is mamish, belongs to everyone, like everyone poured in 1 gallon of wine, then you don't have to do the zechut. You don't have to mizake. You don't have to perform the kinyan of giving it to someone else because it already belongs to everybody. But if one person, say, collects money or just out of the goodness of his heart, collects, everyone wants to join in, and he's giving over his barrel of wine or oil or food to everybody, then he needs to be zocheyet, needs to make a kinyan by giving it to someone else. And the Bartanura actually brings like a ritual of how you do it. The person giving the barrel says, Kiblu chabitzu, accept this barrel, vizachu ba l'shem kol b'nei mavui, and acquire it on behalf, in mind, of every resident of the alley. V'hazoche makbia ha'eruv biado, and the person who's acquiring, who's transferring to, he picks it up off the ground into his hand, tefach min karka, at least a tefach from the karka. This is called a kinyan hagba, a kinyan of lifting. We're going to learn all about kinyanim in Bava Metzia, so hold on about a year or so, I don't know, maybe not that long. The kol heicha, de moncha, b'shusa lo havia zochia. So if it's still in his rishus, it's still in his courtyard, it's not a zachia until you lift it up, the hagba. The omer, and the person accepting it says, zachiti lahem, I have acquired it on behalf of all of them. The Mishnah continues, Aval eino mizake, but you can't give it over on behalf of everyone else. All yedei b'no bito ketonim, on minor children, they're still in the legal domain, they're still dependents on the father. V'ol yedei ovdu shchatu knanim, or a Canaanite servant, mipnei sheyadon ki yado, because their yad is like his yad. Now, yad is in the sense of the legal right to make acquisitions. If a child or a servant acquires something through his hand, then it would technically belong to the father. So then if the father is giving them something, he's sort of giving it back to himself, and they can't acquire it on behalf of somebody else. Great, on to Mishnah Zayin. Nitma'it ha'uchel, if the amount of food was reduced. Now, tomorrow we're going to learn exactly how much food we need, but here in this case we're just saying it got reduced from whatever that minimum level is. Mosif umizake, so add on more food, and if it's his own food, he has to do the zechus again by giving it to someone else on behalf of everyone else. Ein tzorich lehodio, and you don't have to inform them that you've added on food or replaced the food. After all, they've already given their acceptance and approval or their financial contribution already for the shituf. But the Mishnah says, Nitaisvu alehim, if new residents are added on to the Mavui, Mosif umizaka, you have to add food and give it to someone as a kinyan, v'tzorich lehodio, and you have to inform them. Now, the Kehati brings one explanation, you need to get their approval, and the Barnur actually explains that there's another inyan going on, that we're talking about a courtyard with two openings. Now, if the courtyard opens up to two different mavuis, one to the east and one to the west, you can only make a shituf on one of them, lamaisa. So if you assume that Reuven and Shimon over there want to go to the west, and you include them in the west, but really they want to go to the east, well, that's why you need to ask permission first, because you can be zoche la'adam shlo b'fanav. The Gemara says, zochin la'adam shlo b'fanav. You can give somebody a zechus, an advantage, a benefit, even if he's not there. You could give him something beneficial when he's not there. Ve'in chavin la'adam ela b'fanav. But you can't take away any right, even if you're giving him a right to carry in the alley to the west. Maybe he wanted the right to the alley in the east, and now you're taking that away. So you can't do that unless he's there, unless you have his permission. It's a good reminder. Sometimes we try to do people favors, and they might be, very sensitive and very specific to the type of favor. So maybe it's better to consult with people before trying to do them a favor that they might see favorably. Shabbat shalom und sei gesund.